Let's see if this thing is going, if we in here. Let's make sure we are in here to check the feed. Make sure that I'm not struggle streaming today. Struggle streaming is when your feed is lagging, dropping off. Struggle streaming is when you think you're streaming and you're not. All things that I'm about to check here on my iPhone, which I call my research department. Research department, are we streaming? Hold on, let them get back to me. So I go down here and check my research department to make sure that this stream is live and in effect. And it is. We're going to get into it today. I want to talk about this Joe Rogan situation. It's a little more complex. It's a little more complex than what people are making it. I noticed that every side has their own narrative or have their own things that they want to highlight about the Joe Rogan story. And the reason I have Eric Adams up there, because Eric Adams is the mayor of New York City. Somebody grabbed me a rope and he said some very disparaging things the other day that can be considered bigoted. And he's not getting the same coverage. Now, is this because of history? What is the, why is this? So I say this is a very, very interesting topic to say the least. Chopper, how you doing? I gave you a moderator wrench. You see that wrench next to your name? That means you have the power. Yes, indeed, you have the power. Let me get this so I can share it with a few of our compadres. We're a small channel trying to work our way up. So when you come in, make sure you hit the like. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe. But we're going to talk about this. And up here, I have a show. If you don't know, it's a news show that they show on YouTube and is brought to you by The Hill. And the show is called Rising. We're going to get into that because I'll be honest with you guys, that is a show that I actually watch and I glean good information from that show. But I do notice that they definitely have a narrative when it comes down to covering Joe Rogan. The Joe Rogan situation is deep because it's not just one topic. When we talk about Joe Rogan, we have to break it down into both aspects. And what I'm finding is people don't want to break it down into every aspect. When it comes down to Joe Rogan, do I think that there's a concerted effort to get him off of YouTube and out of homes because what he's saying that goes against the governmental narrative about the jab, right? Because Joe Rogan, it doesn't seem as if he is just falling hook, line, and sinker for everything that the government is saying, everything that our expert is saying. And so he'll invite other guests on who counter that narrative, and these guests aren't getting any room on a platform anywhere else. And so do I think they are trying to deplatform him because of that? I think yes. I think that is one part of it. And I think that is a huge part of it. And do I agree with it? No. I enjoy some of the guests that he has on. Now, the other part of the Joe Rogan situation is him using the N-word, him saying nigger. And what I have noticed as I'm looking through it is Joe Rogan was not misquoted. He was taken out of context on purpose. He was taken out of context on purpose. But also what I noticed is people are also not talking about the stuff that he actually did say wrong. They don't want to add no context to that. They don't even want to bring it up. And I'm talking about shows such as Rising, Timcast. These are shows that garner hundreds of thousands of viewers. Timcast himself, and that's the guy right here. Let me see, what side is he on? He's right here. He has an independent news channel with over 1 million followers. So people listen to him. And a lot of the things he says and a lot of the things that come on the show, I agree with. Not all, some, a good amount. And The Rising, I like the dynamic of that show, The Rising, too. And again, if you see Eric Adams in the picture, that's the guy next to Joe Rogan in the picture right here above Timcast. That is the mayor of New York. And he said some things. And so we're going to go over these things, but I'm going to start off over here, you guys, and I'm going to show you how things are being covered when it comes to Joe Rogan. And people are purposefully leaving certain things out. They're leaving things out that are very important. So I'm going to play, and this isn't going to be a long one today, guys. I'm just going to show you some contrast and compare. Because I do think that these things have to be contrast and compared, and we do have to remember that multiple things can happen at one time. What they're trying to do, they're trying to make us focus on one aspect of a situation that has multiple aspects involved. And they only want you to focus on the aspect that is going to be good for their narrative. So we're going to go over here and I'm going to show you guys what I mean. And I'm going to play this a little bit from The Rising so you can see how it's being set up. And I'm going to tell you right now, they talk about Joe Rogan's racist comments. They talk about him saying the N-word. But they also know that a lot of that montage was taken out of context. But they stay away from what is in context that he said wrong. All right? All right, so let me get over here and we're going to play a little bit of that.
Robbie, what's on your radar?
Well, more artists are joining Neil Young's boycott of Spotify in an attempt to pressure the company to silence Joe Rogan, whose podcast has dared to question the government and the public health establishment on the subject of COVID-19. The latest to quit Spotify is singer-songwriter India Ari, who noted that she was specifically leaving not just because of Rogan spreading so-called COVID misinformation, but also because of racism. She specifically cited a recent viral video that shows past Rogan clips in which he uses the N-word. Here's some of that video with the word in question bleeped out.
Like, you know, the
thing.
Yes. Saying the word
You've already said
is just like saying
she's calling you a
like this boy that he's a and starts calling them word. There should be a word like especially like the word that's our about he says guy and then starts saying allowed to use the word about the word see word say and he couldn't say
Not good. But do you know who agrees that it's not good? Well, Joe Rogan. In fact,
see, not good. And you know who agrees that it's not good? Joe Rogan, which is true. Joe Rogan did come out and he issued an apology. He said it was one of the worst things that he ever has to apologize. And like I said, this isn't verbatim, but he says it's one of the worst things he has ever had to apologize about. And I can understand that. And what I'm saying is also, there's one thing that they left out in that montage where they show Joe Rogan. They show it and then they're going to go on and say how a lot of it was taken out of context and how we should forgive them. Now let's look over here on the screen. Let's look right under me, right under my screen right here where you see me, right here. Let's look down right here. It says more boycotts. Don't say that. Apologize and move on down memory lane. Okay. More boycotts. So he's saying that, yeah, more people are boycotting Joe Rogan. Then it's like, okay, don't say that. Pat him on the hand, give him a little pat. And he's saying apologize and we should just move on. But the thing is, they're not giving the full context of the worst statement he had. What they are doing is showing you stuff that they can say, hey, look, this was taken out of context. But what he said that was in perfect context and that was completely understandable, they are completely leaving out. So I'm going to play a second more of this and we're going to move on. But you can hear how they're framing it. They are framing it solely on the lines of him being disliked because of what he's doing when it comes to the jab and him bringing on alternative views. And I don't even like to call them alternative views. And I'm going to be honest with you. I like the fact that he does that. I like when people speak truth to power or at least give you a contrast to one main narrative that's being put out there. I do like that. But what I don't understand, because these are supposed to be these independent media outlets. Now, even though Rising is attached to The Hill, they still give the era as if they're an independent media outlet. And when it comes to Joe Rogan, I don't think that he should be censored. I think we just have to accept that people may say things that you don't like. And sometimes people just don't like you or your kind. That's not illegal. And it is up to Spotify if they want to lay him off. But what I am recognizing is this: they are not giving the full context of everything that he said. They're saying he's being taken out of context, but then they hide some of the context. That makes them the same as CNN, the people that they battle against in Fox News and stuff, the people that they say withhold information. So again, they're talking about Joe Rogan saying the N-word. And I am here to tell you, I watched hours of Joe Rogan to find out the context of what he was saying. And it's true. Most of this mashup is taken out of context. But the Planet of the Apes, that wasn't taken out of context. But they do not mention it on these shows. They only mention the things that they can point to and say, see, this was taken out of context. Now, that's a game in itself, and it's happening all over the internet and all over mainstream media.
You couldn't say else.
Not good. But do you know who agrees that it's not good? Well, Joe Rogan. In fact, he issued the following apology.
Hello, friends. I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly. There's a video that's out that's a compilation of me saying the N-word. It's a video that's made of clips taken out of context of me of 12 years of conversations on my podcast, and it's all smushed together, and it looks horrible, even to me. Now, I know that to most people, there's no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast. And I agree with that now. I haven't said it in years, but for a long time, when I would bring that word up, like if it would come up in conversation, instead of saying the N-word, I would just say the word. I thought as long as it was in context, people would understand what I was doing.
Okay, and that's Joe Rogan's apology. Not all of it. Not all of it. And so this is what I mean. This is an 11-minute segment. They could have played Joe Rogan's apology in its entirety, especially since they are trying to combat things that are in the mainstream media that are pushed out as lies or misinformation or things that are left out to lead you to a certain narrative. But they left out the part where he apologizes about the ape comment, about the Planet of the Apes and the gorillas. They completely leave that out. And they leave it out on purpose. They go on with more analysis and they go on and they talk about it. And I'll skip through here. You can see the screen. And, other people have come up and they're bringing other people into it. Anna of TYT, she has said the N-word. And so they're trying to compare that. What they're trying to do is make you focus on the things that they can explain away. But they don't want to talk about the things they can't explain away. Okay, Anna says right here, back in the day, we held a policy on TYT, that's the Young Turks, when covering gross statements made by racists, instead of sanitizing their quotes with N-word, we can read their quotes verbatim. Context does matter. Cancel me if you'd like, don't care. All right. And she's saying that because they were saying it with context. And they're willing to show this tweet because they know that Joe Rogan said it, was saying the N-word, and there was context around it most of the time. And I'm going through it here so you guys can see that never again do they pull up his apology to the part where he's apologizing about the ape statement. All right. So as I'm talking, if you can see this, I fast forwarded through the rest of it just so you can see that he never spoke about his ape statement again. Well, they never brought Joe Rogan to finish the apology. So again, that's them only showing you what they want you to see. Now here, I'm going to play the gorillas, the apes, whichever you want to call it. I'm going to play that part in its entirety so you can figure out if you think they're trying to leave this out on purpose, because this show completely leaves it out. Before we do that, I'm going to show you this as well. Let me show you this. All right. Now, there's another show called Timcast, And this show in particular, I mean, he has over 1 million subscribers on YouTube, which is a large base. These people are doing better than a lot of the legacy media. And he comes on, and I noticed this today, and I was wondering, are they going to talk about the full context of what Joe Rogan is saying? See, you can't get out here and talk about people. Well, you can, because that's what's happening. But I find it funny when people get out here and talk about how things aren't being played in full context. And as you're talking about that, you hold back the full context.
The CEO of Spotify has condemned Joe Rogan's use of the N-word, but still refuses to deplatform. Let me just make something very clear for all of you. Joe Rogan, as far as I know, and as far as I can tell from any of these videos, has never used the N-word. No, but he did say it. A video went viral, sort of, showing.
See, and that's what they're trying to focus on, because that is a good pivot point, because the truth of the matter is, in that viral video, there were a lot of things misrepresented that Joe Rogan said. Now, it still does kind of get to me his fascination with wanting to say the word, because I have no fascination in saying anything racist or saying anything demeaning about somebody of another race just because it's a word that's said, and I feel like I should be able to say everything, the world is mine. I should be able to say whatever I want. And that's a lot of Joe Rogan's thinking and thought process is, why can't we say it? Let's take the power away from saying it by saying it. And also, real quick, one of the things that they're leaving out in the montage is there was a guy on there giving a story, and he said, yeah, and the guy got up and said the N-word. And Joe Rogan looks at him and says, well, why don't you just say it? Why don't you just say it? And he was like, I don't think it's right. And this isn't verbatim, but he's telling him, I don't think it's right. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. Then Joe Rogan goes on to ask him, say it. Just say it. Come on, man, just say it. Say the word. And then when he finally says the word, they get a good laugh out of it. See, they keep saying how he never really said it. It was only in context to other things, but they are not talking about the things that he did do that are wrong. So if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about all of it. And I still think there's a double standard going on in another way, and I'm going to talk about that. And I'm involved in that double standard. I have found myself being part of it.
Joe Rogan, as far as I know, and as far as I can tell from any of these videos, has never used the N-word. No, but he did say it. A video went viral, sort of, showing Joe Rogan saying the N-word in many different circumstances. The context of this was that he was typically either referencing the use of the word or citing the names of things. He was never actually calling anybody the N-word. But in today's day and age, there's literally no context, no circumstance in which you can tell anybody what that word is. Now, this is a big mistake and a big problem. Joe should not have apologized. The CEO has now come out and said that Joe is the one who removed 71 episodes of his podcast.
All right, so I just wanted to set that up right there so you can hear what he's saying. If you want to go find the rest of this show, it's Timcast on YouTube. Just type in Timcast. You can scroll down and watch it all. And the first video was The Rising. You can scroll down and watch it all. It's The Hill on YouTube. Okay, so again, right there what Timcast is doing. See, Timcast, he's talking about Joe Rogan saying the N-word and saying how he is being misrepresented. What he was saying was just either repeating what someone else was saying or talking about a title. But what they keep leaving out, something that is very key, if you ask me, all right? And this is what it is. Let me find that, and I'm going to find the comment that, see, he didn't say the N-word in his comment, but it's just as bad. And he wasn't repeating what somebody else was saying. He wasn't giving a story that somebody else told him. He wasn't reading a title. He wasn't doing any of these things that these people can explain away. But the things that they can explain away, they just simply don't say anything about. And in my opinion, that makes them the same as the mainstream media. At least be like me and say, hey, I'm a hypocrite on this because I'm going to show you guys why. But let's look at what Joe Rogan said that they are completely leaving out. completely. And most of these platforms are leaving this part out. And I'm going to play it in its entirety so you can hear all of it. It's, I think, 4 minutes, but this is very important in all of this because it's not always what's said. A lot of the time, it's what's left out, right?
So anyway, we can't go to there. So I go, you got to go to one where there's Planet of the Apes, man. We're going to go see Planet of the Apes. So I look on the iPhone app, and it says, okay, take me to this one. And the guy goes, okay. I go, is that in a good neighborhood? He's like, oh, yeah. Guy barely speaks English. He takes us there. We get out, and we're giggling. Oh, we're going to go see Planet of the Apes. We walk into Planet of the Apes. We walked into Africa, dude. We walked in the door, and there was no white people. There was no white people. Planet of the Apes didn't take place in Africa. That was a racist thing for me to say. But you see what I'm saying. What I'm saying is...
Flies automatically.
See, they tried to explain it away, and I'm not going to keep stopping it, but as they try to explain it away and they don't say it, Joe Rogan says right there, that was a racist thing to say. He recognizes it was racist, then he reverses course. He recognizes it was racist. That's why nobody is really wants to talk about that. But I'm going to tell you why I'm a hypocrite too. Right after this, I'm going to play it.
We walked in the door, and there was no white people. There was no white people. Planet of the Apes didn't take place in Africa. That was a racist thing for me to say. But you see what I'm saying. What I'm saying is...
Flies automatically stuck to your head.
Yeah, what happened is we walked into the blackest neighborhood we could find. I mean, there was literally no white people. It was amazing. And everybody was super cool. You know, it wasn't a negative experience. And this is something I wrote on Twitter, that we all went to see Planet of the Apes in a black neighborhood, an experience I highly recommend. And all these fucking people started calling me a racist. I mean, dozens of Twitter people, dude, I didn't know you were racist. Fuck you. Like, black people were saying fuck you. I'm like, listen, man, I am saying it was a positive experience.
Yeah, it was
I
a
said
party,
I highly
right?
recommend it. And it was a black neighborhood. And we get in there, right? And we're so giggly high. We're like, oh my God, we're so high. And then I realized, like, whoa, everyone's black here. Like, well, I mean, everyone's black here. This is crazy. And then a bunch of people recognized me, and they started.
He already knew that everyone was black. He didn't just recognize it once he got there. He already made the Planet of the Apes statement. He already said when we got out, there were no black people there. There was surprisingly no white people. He was super surprised there was no white people. Now, later on, see, this is, in my opinion, this is him just trying to make better on what he already said was racist out of his own mouth. Now, do I think he should be deplatformed for that? No.
Taking pictures, and it's all good. Everybody's cool and friendly. Cool as shit. Like, this guy goes, yo, man, where I know you from? I don't want to bother you, man. I'm not trying to use up your time. Where I know you from? I go, Fear Factor. And he goes, yeah, that's it. But it's the way he said it. It was like so cool.
How many?
And he was like, the way he said it is so cool. And he's speaking with an ethnic voice. He's talking like a brother from the hood, is what he's trying to do. Now, is there some microaggressions in there, or is there some type of sentiment of making fun of him in there? I think so. But I also think that as black people, we do the same thing when we talk about white people. I always use my white voice when I want to talk about white people. And so this is where the double standard comes in. And this is why I say I'm involved myself. Because it's clear that he's making a black joke and he's trying to cover up for it. But what I'm trying to say is, let's not act like he wasn't trying to make a black joke, a terrible joke that was bigoted, and it was a joke. But other people of other races do it all the time, and it's okay. That's where the double standard come in. I'm going to play the rest.
And we're giggling. Oh, no one did the Smoke Rocks thing, but I took a lot of goddamn pictures. And like I said, super cool, super friendly. This is not a negative story. So then we go into the movie theater, right? It's me, Tommy, and like maybe there's another white person, maybe one other white person. Movie theater filled with black people, and they are having a good fucking time. And you know, people always complain that black people talk to the movie theater and talk to the screen. Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
I don't talk during the movies. Yes, they do. So he's magnifying all these stereotypes, but I see people of all races talking during the movie. It just depends on the movie, depends on where you are. Everybody's not the same. So I think this is showing a lot of what he's thinking, even as he's trying to backtrack what he said.
but it's good.
It adds to the experience.
Fucking yeah. If that's what
yeah.
you know, and like, so the way I felt like, I'm like, look, I'm in their neighborhood. This is how they go to the movies. Who the fuck am I to be offended by how they like to go to the movies? They were at the movies, and I'm not saying all black neighborhoods do this, but this particular black neighborhood, these people brought babies, bro. I mean, there's a lot of people with babies. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just
These people bought babies, bro. There's a lot of black people with babies. And again, maybe these are things that you just say in front of your friends, because the truth of the matter is these things that Joe Rogan is not the only person saying these type of things. He's not the only person making these type of statements. My issue is the people who are trying to act like this doesn't exist. It does exist. In fact, he apologized for it. But like I showed on The Rising, they always cut that part of the apology off. They talk about the things he was said out of context when he was saying the N-word, but they're not talking about the full context of this. And then in his apology, he said, I only said that for entertainment, about the apes, the Planet of the Apes, and him being in Africa when he got out the car and he was in the bad neighborhood. But who does that comment entertain? Who does that story entertain? Does it entertain the black people that he's talking about? I'm black, and I am not entertained by him talking about when he got to this all-black neighborhood, he was in the Planet of the Apes, especially knowing the comparison to black people in apes, or the low intellect of black people in apes. The contrast of a black man and an ape always being meshed together in a negative connotation. And that's what he was doing. When he was talking about Africa, he wasn't referring to the kingdoms in Africa or the rich stuff you see in Africa. He's referring to the kid with the fly on his eyeballs, you know, Africa like a jungle. And 2 seconds later, he says himself, oh yeah, that was racist. And that's why they're not showing it.
one. These people in front of us walked in and they had toddlers, like little 2-year-olds, sitting on their lap to see Planet of the fucking Apes at like 10:40 on a Friday night.
Didn't give a fuck about
Didn't give a fuck.
Nothing.
Didn't give a fuck.
See, now listen, and his friend over there didn't give a fuck about school. He said it's 10:40 on a Friday night. What school? See, they're so caught up into this story to where all of their stereotypes is just coming out. The guy that you know, and I think he's another comedian over there. And at first I thought he was trying to get out of the situation, get out of the picture, but he's over there like reiterating this stereotype or reiterating this story. Now, if I could go to a movie theater and find other people with their kids there at 10:30 on a Friday, what's the significance of that? Now, they're talking about it as if this is only black people and as if it's irresponsible to have your child out at 10:30 on a Saturday. Now, to see Planet of the Apes, I don't know. But to them, that was just seemed to be some type of, woo.
On their lap to see Planet of the fucking Apes at like 10:40 on a Friday night.
Didn't give a fuck about
Didn't give
school.
a fuck.
Nothing.
Didn't give a fuck. But I'll tell you what made me really nervous and made me feel kind of weird was watching all of these previews of all these different TV shows or all these different movies rather that are coming out. And I'm watching these movies and all of them are about white people.
Oh, weird.
And I'm sitting there and I'm going, wow, this is weird. Like, imagine being a black person. And I always thought, like, people would complain, like, I'd hear black people complain about, oh, there's no films for black people, there's no roles for black actors. And I'd be like, so go make a movie. What do you want from me, you know?
You see, he has a very flippant attitude. Before this incident, he says, what do you complain? Just go make your movie. And things aren't that simple. Now, I do think that can happen. And part of my mind state is go do it yourself. But the flippantness in what he's saying, it is like almost as if it's easy as for him. Now, he got the complexion for protection. And again, I do not think he should be deplatformed for saying any of this because this is stuff that people say. And at the same time, I see people of other races saying whatever they want about other races, and there is no rallying call. But again, I do not like the fact that people are acting like this video never happened. And as we watch the video, he says, oh, that was racist, out of his own mouth. And so later on, when he starts talking about how he sees that there's only white previews and he sees the frustration, I personally believe because he knows he stepped in it in a way and he's still trying to get through the story. He don't want to seem like, oh, I just got caught. So he has to finish. And this is just my perspective. But the things he said at the beginning, and I'll go over the first 20 seconds so you can hear it again when we're done with this, with no interruptions, it was egregious. And it's how he felt.
But when you go to a goddamn movie theater with all black people, that's when you really feel it. I'm sitting there in the audience and all these people are black, but every movie preview is white. There's no black characters. And then finally there's this movie with Jonah Hill. And they show a preview for the movie. And it's Jonah Hill, and he's doing all this different shit. And he's babysitting kids, but he's supposed to be like a cool guy. And the way they show you he's a cool guy is there's an old black guy working like at a door at a club. Like the black guy's there, and Jonah Hill's talking black to him. You know, it is what it is, brother. It is what it is. And I'm watching this.
You see what I mean? Jonah Hill talking black to him. It is what it is, brother. It is what it is. That's not necessarily how all black people speak to each other. And white people have slang. I know a lot of white people that talk like that as well. You would call them a wigger. Or you would just say they grew up around a lot of black people, or some didn't. That's just the dialect they want to speak because they're hip hop. And at the same time, I know black people that don't speak like that whatsoever. Never have, never will, and actually look down on it and say it makes us sound ignorant. It makes you sound ignorant. And they would say it to anybody of any race who was speaking like Joe Rogan is speaking. And I'll be honest with you, Joe Rogan isn't the most articulate guy himself. So when he's talking about they over there talking like a brother, I think this is the reasons why they don't want to play this, because even as he's trying to explain it away, he's still saying these very stereotypical things that are not always true. Some stereotypes do hold validity. I'm not going to lie. But some of them are just like, you know what? I don't know about that. And you got to remember, he's saying this in a forum that he's pushing out to a bunch of people. Do I think he should be deplatformed? No. I think it should be up to you whether you listen or not. But I am going to hold people to the fire who act like this part don't exist. What they're trying to do is only show you the stuff that they can rebut and say, hey, look, this was taken out of context. But they are not talking about this. They're not even playing this part of his apology.
And Jonah Hill's talking black to him. You know, it is what it is, brother. It is what it is. And I'm watching this with all these black people. I'm watching this white guy talk like a black guy. And I'm in this fucking theater filth, and I'm like, and I'm high as fuck. I mean, just barbecued. Sitting there soaking in this experience going, wow, this is fucked up. Like, no wonder why black people are angry and they
Well, part of the reason we're angry is because you'll get out of your car and sit all black people and say, hey, I'm in the Planet of the Apes. I'm in the Planet of the Apes. This is Africa. I'm afraid, and walk in, you're nervous and all that stuff. You know, that's part of what black people are frustrated with as well, Mr. Rogan.
feel disenfranchised. Like they're completely removed from the mainstream cultural experience in a lot of ways. Like there's a tiny percentage of black people that are included in movies. So finally, Planet of the Apes plays. Everyone's white in the movie except the bad guy. The bad guy is a black guy. And I thought it was so strange. And not only that, he's a bad guy who owns this giant company, and he has an English accent. It's like, not only is he it's like you couldn't have a brother from Philadelphia that figured out how to own this corporation. It couldn't be a guy, even a brother that talks like a regular businessman type dude, you know, who's like, well, what we need to do is acquire this, and, you know, once we get that, and then we'll be on moving, and then we get in the Forbes, you know. No. This guy has an English accent. He doesn't sound like anybody you know. And this is the only black guy in the fucking movie. And I'm like, wow. And then the rest of the movie is just badass monkeys, just badass chimpanzees.
So was the CGI awesome? Was it?
Oh my God, is it good? First of all, the movie is the shit. Planet of the Apes is a dope movie. It's
all right, you guys, and that's Joe Rogan's statement. Then they go on. They don't reference that anymore. I wanted to play it in its entirety, unlike all these other stations and channels that say they play stuff in its entirety, but they only give you just a little bit to go off of. And so I wanted to play that. And the last thing I'm going to get to, I'm over here fumbling and bumbling and dropping stuff. The last thing I'm going to get to is I'm going to show the hypocrisy, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be honest about it. I'm a part of the hypocrisy. I am a part of the hypocrisy, especially on this subject, because when I heard Joe Rogan, I think I said it out loud. I said, wow, what he said is terrible. What he said is terrible. And then we have Eric Adams, the mayor of the mayor of New York, former police chief, the mayor of New York City. He comes out and he says crackers. He says what he does to crackers when he was a police officer, and I laughed from the bottom of my stomach. The exact same way that those people were laughing when Joe Rogan was talking about his Planet of the Apes story. Oh yeah, I said I was going to play that at the beginning just so you could hear, just in case anybody is late. I'm going to play that about 20 seconds of it because we saw it in its entirety. And I'm going to get back over here and I'm going to talk about this Eric Adams thing just for a quick second and I'm going to get out of here because it is a double standard.
So anyway, we can't go to there. So I go, you got to go to one where there's Planet of the Apes, man. We're going to go see Planet of the Apes. So I look on the iPhone app, and it says, okay, take me to this one. And the guy goes, okay. I go, is that in a good neighborhood? He's like, oh, yeah. Guy barely speaks English. He takes us there. We get out, and we're giggling. Oh, we're going to go see Planet of the Apes. We walk into Planet of the Apes. We walked into Africa, dude. We walked in the door, and there was no white people. There was no white people. Planet of the Apes didn't take place in Africa. That was a racist thing for me to say.
All right. You hear what he said right there. Now, you know, that wasn't him repeating somebody else's statement like Tim Cass said or reading the title of something. That's his own story coming from him. That's what he saw, what he felt, and what happened as he pulled up and saw all those black people. All right. Now, I'm not going to lie. I've heard black people say stuff like that, and it's still wrong. But I'm going to show you guys my part of the hypocrisy. All right. Let me go over here and find my mouse. Because I think a lot of people are afraid to say, like, you know what, these things are happening. And I'm going to be honest, this is something that I do think we need to address in this country. Who can say what about who? Who can say what about who? Because if we're on the freedom of speech, the freedom of speech thing,
you gotta go.
And we really mean it, who can talk about who? Can black people talk about white people with impunity and white people not be able to talk about black people with impunity? Can black people talk about white people because of the history of what white people have done to black people in the United States? Are we all fighting the same fight together when it comes down to us being silenced and censored? See, it's so much going on, but it's such a slippery slope when we're selective in our anger. All right. So I'm going to get over here and we're going to play this Eric Adams piece and you'll see what I said, because I do believe if this happened the other way and Eric Adams was white saying this about black people, there would be an uproar.
And now to an apology from Mayor Adams for an inappropriate comment he made in 2019 about white police officers.
The video was made public today, and CBS 2's political reporter Marcia Kramer investigated.
Although he apologized to New Yorkers late today, Mayor Adams tried to put the comment in context, saying he was responding to a question in which the inappropriate comment was used, and he repeated it as part of his answer.
Every day in the police department, I kicked those crackers' ass, man. I was unbelievable in the police department.
A furor in which the inappropriate comment was used, and he repeated it as part of his answer.
Every day in the police department, I kicked those crackers' ass, man. I was unbelievable in the police department.
In which the inappropriate comment was used, and he repeated it as part of his answer.
Every day in the police department, I kicked those crackers' ass, man. I was unbelievable in the police department.
A furor tonight over the sudden.
All right. And so that's what I'm saying. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. People in the chat, if that was a white man saying that about a black person, what would be the reaction? Would people be angry? Now, they go on later and say that the police union and all these people, they're backing Eric Adams. They're saying that they're not going to let that statement come in between him and them. But that's a whole different reason. I think they're saying that because he's going to do this whole tough on crime approach, and that's exactly what they want. So they're not going to throw away the baby with the bathwater. But one more time, you guys, I'm trying to ask you guys, would it be a different reaction if Eric Adams was white saying this about a black man?
Which the inappropriate comment was used, and he repeated it as part of his answer.
Every day in the police department, I kicked those crackers' ass, man. I was unbelievable in the police department.
A furor tonight over the.
All right. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. When I saw that, I laughed. I laughed from the bottom of my stomach. I'm going to spit out my water. I'm going to spit out my water the same way that those guys did when Joe Rogan says that. And it made me think, like, is this a tribal thing? Is it tribalism? It almost reminds me of a Mayweather fight. Remember when Mayweather would fight? All the black people would want Mayweather to win. And if he was fighting a Mexican guy, all the Mexicans wanted the Mexican to win. If he was fighting a white guy, all the white guys would want the white guy to win. No matter if it seemed like they really had a chance, it's not even about comparing talent. It's just tribal. It's just tribal. And that's what I'm getting out of it. And so I don't think Joe Rogan should be deplatformed for the simple fact that I don't think Eric Adams should lose his job. Now, what I do think about these outlets, like The Rising, like Timcast, which I do watch in full transparency, and I do listen to, I do find it a bit funny that when trying to combat the mainstream media, they use their tactics this time. They're not talking about Joe Rogan talking about the Planet of the Apes because they know that it's hard to explain that away. Instead of just saying he was wrong. The same way I could sit here and say I am a part of the hypocrisy. And I'm preaching. And I'm really preaching. And you know what I mean. So, hey, you guys, this is Soapbox Heroes. I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. We'll be back later on tonight. I got some other stuff to discuss. Maybe I got the expert on here. Maybe I can see if the expert got some time and we could give you guys some news that you can use. This is Soapbox Heroes. My name is Tyrone.